All right. Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us here on Beyond the Cage. This is round number 5. I'm your host, Jim Graham. And as I said in our video blog, we have a very special guest joining us. He is the president of the Maximum Fighting Championship, and that is Mr. Mark Pavelich. Mark, thanks for joining us here on Beyond the Cage.
My pleasure, Jim.
Now, Mark, next Friday you will have your next event, MFC 35 in Edmonton, and it will feature your first middleweight title fight since 2006. How important is it to you that the middleweight division is getting back on track?
Well, it's very important to get it back, right? And we're a different organization. We're not the organization that just gives belts away for free. They have to be earned, and there's a long road to get to them. And there's no easy path in the Maximum Fighting Championship. And people are going to find out. They've been finding out for going on our 13th year now of business, and they're going to find out that this next not this Friday, the Friday after, October 26th, and people are going to find out firsthand when they watch these two fight, Joseph Henley and Elvis the King Musapicic. They're going to find out the level of the Maximum Fighting Championship.
And looking at those two fighting for that middleweight title, Joseph Henley and Elvis Musapicic, what do you expect from these two in the ring?
Joseph Henley in his fight to get to this point fought a guy named Luke Harris, Luke Harris is a very high-level black belt Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu on a 9-fight winning streak. Henley walks in and just beats him down like he's a nobody, and the guy's a phenomenal fighter. Then Elvis on the other side of the bracket fights Jason Flynn, who's beat guys like Dean Lister, Dennis King, and he beats Flynn down like he's a nobody. Okay? So this is what I'm trying to tell you, the level of these two guys, when they get into the ring on October 26th, people are going to see the level of what I'm talking about, right? And the bottom line is, they both say it. They don't know. It's not going to go 5 rounds. Neither of them are saying they're going to win the fight, but they're saying for sure it ain't going 5 rounds.
For sure. And besides the middleweight division getting back on track with that fight, you're also starting your featherweight division at MFC 35. What are your expectations for the new featherweight division?
My expectations are gigantic, right? I started out with a guy like Shane Nelson from Hawaii with BJ Penn, and Graham Spencer, who by far is probably the number 1 ranked 145er in the country in Canada, and that's why I did it. I'm like, I want to bring in high-level guys, and that's all I'm going to sign in the 145 division. And in 2013, I'm going to have the 135 division, and I'm going to bring in the highest level guys I can possibly get at 135.
And speaking of the 145 division, how soon can we expect a title fight for that division for you?
Mid-2013.
Okay, and looking at that first featherweight fight, as you said, Shane Nelson is taking on Graham Spencer. Obviously, Shane Nelson has spent some time in the UFC. What do you expect out of him against Graham Spencer?
I think it's going to be an awesome fight. But the thing is, I know what's going to happen out of this scenario. Graham Spencer's beat Mukai Moromo before, right? And Shane Nelson usually fights at 155. So they all know that Mukai Moromo's on this serious roll right now, ranked in the top 60 in the world right now in the 155 division. They're looking at him going, you know what? He's ready to fight February 15th in the Maximum Fighting Championship. They know that he's going to be fighting for the belt. If Graham Spencer wins, he's going to immediately call out Mukai Moromo. If Shane Nelson wins, he's going to call out too, because this is the first time in MFC history where guys are starting to see that they can hold 2 belts. They're thinking, I can hold the 155-pound belt, and then I can take the 145-pound belt, which would basically put them on the map everywhere in the world. So that's why I'm starting to hear that trend come from all these guys.
Now, of course, you already have a huge presence in Canada, the largest MMA organization in the country. You already have a TV deal with Access TV to be shown on the United States. Are there any plans on increasing your presence, especially with live shows within the United States?
Yeah, when you guys get a new president of the United States and your economy gets better, the Maximum Fighting Championship will come into your country. It's $600 to sit in the front row of the Maximum Fighting Championship in Canada. So you tell me where in the United States I can get $600 to sit in the front row to watch our show, right?
Well, not in Detroit where I'm from.
No, exactly, right? And I don't be mistaken. I love America. I love the United States. My broadcasting partners are from the United States. Majority of my roster is from the United States. And it's just, when you guys get a new president that can make money and the economy turns around a little bit, you'll see the Maximum Fighting Championship there. So everybody vote Mitt Romney.
All right. If we look at yourself as well as your whole organization is heavily involved with Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. How important is social media for the Maximum Fighting Championship?
It's extremely important because we have a very big obsession with it for the sole purpose that it works for us. We're very active on Twitter. We're very active on Facebook. We're very active on Tout. We're very active everywhere, and it's just we have to be, and we have to be very consistent with it, not just busy sometimes with it and sometimes not. It's an ongoing thing, you know what I mean? And it's something that we understand as a company that we seriously got to consistently stay on top of. And when we do, we're noticing, more views on Access TV, more attention brought to our organization.
Now, Invicta is an all-women's promotion. They recently had their third event. I wanted to get your take on the promotion Invicta as well as women's MMA as a whole.
I mean, I respect all athletes in general, right? Female, male, doesn't matter, right? But I'm not a big fan of female MMA. And I like Sarah Kaufman very much, and Ronda Rousey, I think she's awesome. But the problem with it falls off. It falls off too far. And that's the problem. Because if you had, 10 Ronda Rouseys and 10 Sarah Kaufmans and all these other people, then the sport would be awesome. But you don't, right? And until that happens, I really have zero interest in it. I never watch it, never. And, but like I said, I have the utmost respect for the girls that train really hard. And, until the level, which I think one day it probably will, get to where it needs to get to, where you're going to have, 15, 16 girls that are at the high level that are all competing, at that level. Right now, it's just not happening.
Looking at other MMA promotions, how much do you look at them in terms of either inspiration or ways maybe not to do things? Do you do that a lot?
I think it's more not to do things.
Okay.
I think the only organization that I've ever looked at that I think does things properly is the UFC. Outside of that, I have zero interest. I very rarely watched even the UFC. So for me, I'm all about the Maximum Fighting Championship. I like to watch my organization. I like to fix it. There's always something to fix, so I'm not naive to think there's not. There's a ton of stuff to fix all the time. And that's just kind of how I am. I'm not one of these, I've been here since I was here in this business when nobody else was. Do you understand? I'm going on my 13th year of business. How many people you interview in the last, how many years you've been in this business? Been in the MMA business for 13 years. How many?
Not too many. I've been in this business for 5, and I've seen a lot come and go in just 5.
And 5 is a lot, right? Like 5 is a lot. 5 is, I start to respect people when they're in the business for 5 years. It's the people that, all these new shows that come up and people are like, oh, what do you think of this show, Mark? I'm like, I don't think nothing of it, right? Ask me in 5 years, right? If they're still here, then I got an element of respect for them, Until then, I don't even care. I don't even listen. There's nothing that interests me to watch them, I've never watched the 90% of MMA shows. I've never watched them.
Obviously, you're the head of the company, and can you maybe give me a typical, what do you do when it's not like a fight day? What's your typical day in the office? It's not a typical 9-to-5 job, is it?
No, that's why, when I first started out, I had assistants and all these other things, and I just stopped having all that stuff because people don't understand, we don't take vacations, and there's no season for mixed martial arts. We're always on. There's always a season, right? We're never off. So that's something people don't understand, and when you have employees, they don't understand it. Hence why our company only has 10 employees, and most of them all have the same last name as me.
With your day job, do you have any downtime, or is it 24/7?
24/7.
24/7.
24/7. No, I don't do nothing else. I have a hard time socializing, and I've been working on that. There's a time where my wife, who's also my business partner and has been for all the years that we've been successful in the mixed martial art business, she's very adamant about me when we do go out to have some type of functionality in social public places and stuff. So I've kind of been working on that the last year, and it's working out okay.
Now, you already have 4 fights scheduled for 2013 in Edmonton. Are there any plans to do any other fights within Canada, possibly Windsor, so I can come see you guys?
Yeah, there is. There always is plans. My goal is always to do 7 to 8 shows a year, and that's what I'm going to look forward to next year. That's why I went and hustled up and got those 4 shows locked in, and now I'm looking to lock in some more shows.
And if you look at the number of shows you guys have been having, like you said, 7 to 8, is that the ideal number for you, around 8 fights, or do you see you maybe having more in the future, or do you think around 8 is the perfect number for you?
Yeah, around 8 is the perfect number. You put it on almost like a 6-week, 7-week cycle, in that vicinity. And that's kind of how I look at it. And I'm gonna stay on that page looking forward. The only way I'm going to go to the States earlier is if I make a casino deal with an American casino. Once American Casino sees what the Maximum Fighting Championship does, you'll hear very little about these other shows that claim they're so big and this kind of stuff in your country.
Now, I was just at Bellator 76, which was in Windsor, and I got to see...
one of them.
Yeah.
That was one of them right there, because there's a prime example. I'm sorry to cut you off, but when I was at Windsor Caesars, I had 6,000 people inside. Now, you were at their show. Tell me how many people were inside.
There were definitely some empty seats there, Mark. I'm not going to lie to you. There were definitely some empty seats were.
I know that. I know for sure, because I know this business, and that's where I grew up as a kid. When I was there, the place was jam-packed. You couldn't even get in the place. But what happens is sometimes these kind of companies that are run by certain ways, there's just not... They try to go in for cheaper and undercut the market, and I'm not going to do that, because they won't be here one day, and I still will be, right? And that's the difference in mentality. I'm a builder, right? I'm one of the pioneers of this sport, so I'm not here for a quick cash grab. I'm in for the long haul.
And what I was getting to, what I want to ask you is, at the event, Eddie Alvarez fought, and it looks like that's going to be his last fight within Bellator. Is there any chance maybe you try to go out and sign a guy like Eddie Alvarez?
No, I think Eddie's going to want to sign in the UFC, and then people are going to find out that Eddie's a good guy and everything, but he's not going to be successful in the UFC. He's not going to go far. He's not going to be a champion in the UFC, because he's been fighting at guys that are not that level for the last so many years. He's going to jump in the UFC, and he's going to find out the level at 155 there is way higher than he's been competing with. So that's just my opinion. I happen to be an expert in this field, so bet on it.
I wanted to get you out here with this. Obviously, your fight's on the 26th, Access TV. If you had to sum it up in a couple words, what should fans expect there on the 26th?
Greatness. You'll see greatness. You'll see, just like MFC 34. I promised everybody it was going to be like that, and it came out exactly like that. And then I'm telling everybody for MFC 35, the way this is matched up and the way it's all put together, I'm guaranteeing everybody greatness.
All right, Mark, thanks for joining us here on Beyond the Cage. I really appreciate you taking time out of your very busy schedule to come and talk with me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me on, Jim.
He's on Twitter. Follow him at Mark Pavelich. That's just his name. Once again, that was the president of the Maximum Fighting Championship, Mark Pavelich, right here on Beyond the Cage. You can listen to Beyond the Cage every week on VigilanteMMA.com, as well as MMAforlife.ca. You can follow me on Twitter at Jim Graham. Dave's at Vigilante Juice. You can also listen to the show on your smartphone or tablet device via the Stitcher Smart Radio app. We're on YouTube, youtube.com/Beyond the Cage podcast. Please subscribe. For Dave Sadler, I am Jim Graham. Until next week, thank you for listening to another episode of Beyond the Cage.